Hello, everyone. Welcome to TIFF Stay at Home Cinema, brought to you by TIFF and Crave. We're streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and at tiff.net/stay-at-home. My name is Cameron Bailey. I'm the co-head and artistic director at TIFF. Thanks for joining us. Tonight, we're watching WIDOWS, starting at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. That's 4:30 p.m. on the West Coast of North America. Our special guest is its Academy Award-winning filmmaker, Steve McQueen. Before we get started, just a few shout-outs. We are on Indigenous land, and I'd like to acknowledge Indigenous storytellers from coast to coast to coast. If you have time, please join us on Sunday, June 21st, to celebrate National Indigenous Peoples Day. We'll screen 11 short films made by Indigenous youth in partnership with Wapakoni Mobile, an initiative dedicated to audiovisual creation in Indigenous communities, and you can join us for a live Facebook watch party at 3 p.m. Eastern Time on Sunday. We want to thank our government partners, the Government of Canada, the Government of Ontario, and the City of Toronto for their support. We'd also like to thank frontline workers who've been working all through this pandemic for 3 months to keep us safe and healthy and fed. Big thanks to our corporate partners, our lead sponsor, Bell, our major sponsors, RBC, L'Oreal Paris, and Visa. And thanks also to the individual donors and members for their support, especially right now. TIFF is a not-for-profit cultural organization. We've been hit hard, like many have been, by the pandemic. To ensure we get through this time and we're able to come back strong, we created the For the Love of Film Fund. And if you can, I invite you to make a gift today. You can donate at tiff.net/loveoffilm. And if you're joining us on YouTube, I think there's a donate button on the upper right side of your screen, and you can just hit that, and thank you. WIDOWS made its world premiere almost 2 years ago at the 2018 Toronto International Film Festival. And I have to say that introducing Steve McQueen on the stage of Roy Thomson Hall was one of the highlights of my career. This is a man who's won Britain's top art award, the Turner Prize. His 2013 film, 12 Years a Slave, won the Academy Award for Best Picture and the BAFTA for Best Film. He's that rare visual artist, equally brilliant in art galleries and on the big screen. And WIDOWS marked a first for him, a thriller, a commercial genre movie. But it's made with every bit the precision, the discipline, and the uncompromising intensity that you would have seen in his recent solo exhibition at Britain's Tate Modern Museum. I was lucky enough to see that before the lockdown. I was very, very impressed with the work. There really is no one like Steve McQueen, and I'm so glad that he's logging on from his home in Amsterdam to talk about WIDOWS today. Steve McQueen, welcome to Stay at Home Cinema.
Thank you, Cameron.
Thank you so much for joining us. Now, we are living through wild times. Steve, I want to ask you, as an artist who makes images, whether it's in the gallery or on the big screen, how are you looking at this uprising that we're living through?
It's kind of, for a person, again, I think, fairly similar generations, myself and you and others, who've lived through these sort of times up until now, it feels so kind of wonderful to see these young people just being completely unlocked, unchained. I feel like a warrior. I know I'm a warrior because every time I walk into any situation, I'm ready to fight mentally, strategically, whatever, to get what I want. And to have people just to sort of be very sort of direct in their sort of actions is pretty, it's liberating for me even.
Mm.
because I always go into
Yeah.
situations to try and win, but I always go in feeling that I have to fight. And yes, we still have to fight, but the fact that you could be sort of open about it is pretty. I was just so impressed by John Boyega, so impressed with him. And
Yes.
rang him a couple of
On the
days ago.
streets.
Yes, there was the emotion and the cathartic sort of expelling in that audience in Hyde Park was just, and it was just moving. And I ran to say thank you, thank you, because even if as an elder, I'm so grateful to the young people. Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, I think there's a lot we can learn from
Yeah,
them.
absolutely.
Um, I want to ask you about the origins of turning Widows into a feature film. You had watched the British TV series when you were younger. I want to ask you what drew you to adapting it into a film, and what were the key decisions in terms of how you would adapt it, how you would transform it for cinema.
It was something I lived with for a long time, and it's just one of those. Again, it's just like there's certain things that in childhood that stick with you. And I remember at the time it was a really very popular TV series. It was bigger than Coronation Street at the time, which is the
Mm,
biggest opera,
that's a lot.
the biggest audience. But it got swept away very very quickly. As in, it's one of those sort of big moments in TV. But then it goes, dust covers it and whatnot. But I always remembered it because I think because it would identify with it so much with those women, people who were so unseen, who happened to be seen, and the whole idea that these women were not deemed as being capable of carrying out anything of the sort
Mm.
as a heist. And I sort of equivalated that with myself at that time as a young black male child in the UK, being told you're not capable, or being kept back. So there was a real
Mhm.
connection with the so-called the underdog narrative of this, but particularly with those women who were, all of them were working class, and when there's one black woman, and she for me was very important in the narrative as well. She was the only one whose husband didn't actually die in the sort of the heist as such. She was a hired person who was with the gang. Anyway, it was this wonderful dynamic of these women, and the infighting as well as fighting against the people who were sort of trying to sort of basically keep them down as such.
Mhm. You moved the setting to Chicago, which has a very particular history in America, especially for Black Americans.
Absolutely.
Uh, uh, can you tell me a little bit about why Chicago and what that gave to the story?
I first went to Chicago in 1995. It's my first 25 years ago. It's the first time I went to Chicago. I did a show there at the Art Institute of Art, the Art Institute of Chicago.
Yeah.
No, sorry, Institute of Contemporary Art of Chicago.
Oh, okay.
That was my, in fact, that was my first museum show.
Oh,
Yes.
mm,
I went there at the time with my girlfriend at the time, and who now is my wife. And she, as a young journalist, at the same time was going to the Democratic Convention when Bill Clinton was president. I think he was going for his second term. And so therefore, I always say my first entrance into Chicago was always art and politics.
mm,
And just and from that time, I've obviously gone to Chicago multiple times, and it was just one of those things with Black American sort of culture and in Chicago, and it was just so fractured for me. It was just interesting as a Black outsider
mm,
coming into that and seeing things and how they operated. Um, and over the 25 years, I mean, I've had such a relationship with I chose at Art Institute of Chicago, um, as well as the Renaissance Society there. So I've always been going back there, and I thought this would be a very much fertile ground to plant this fiction into the narrative of Chicago.
mm. Um, and you cast, of course, in your lead role, the magnificent Viola Davis, who I just think is brilliant in the film and has done great work before, but there's something particular about this performance. I want to ask you how you worked together to get her to deliver what she did in Widows.
I think Viola is just, I mean, she needs to go there. I mean, she has a certain power. She goes where other artists fear to tread. That is Viola Davis. And I think that is, you know, the thing with Viola. I think what happened with Viola, I think with a lot, and you know, because you know, with television is sometimes you get a bit sort of stuck in your ways. There are things you do. There's certain kind of gestures or whatever you do. But you know, she is just an artist that has to express herself. So you know, working with her at first, I got to say, and you know, she was a bit rusty a bit in a way, not in a way of sort of not being able to do what she could do, because she could do that. But when you fall into a pattern with television, you seem to do certain things. But then when you give someone something more to do, it's almost like letting someone out of letting someone free, and then she could really express. She could really push the boundaries of her expression, really push the boundaries of what's possible with a performance. Because I imagine with TV, it's kind of limited in a way. There's not much time for certain things, but obviously here we could expand, and it was just wonderful to see. And it was just, you know, working with a great actress, you know, with this narrative was just, it was amazing. She's incredible. There's nothing she can't do. And I think that's the problem. She needs to do more. And I think she doesn't get the opportunity to do more. And I think, you know, it's time, you know, like I said before, you know, I want to do a comedy with her. Why not? There's nothing that she can't do. Nothing.
And I'm sure she's had to fight to get some of the roles she has gotten, but let's hope that she's going to get more. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, goodness gracious, this is great. It's one of the greatest actresses of a generation. I mean, that's just a fact. You know, I mean, if she did a movie with Marlon Brando, for example, or someone again, or something like that, you know, again, she did Fences with Denzel. Again, you know, it's just the depth is, and you know, it's incredible. It's incredible.
There's so many great performances, even in the supporting roles in Widows. I'm thinking of Daniel Kaluuya, that scene in the gym, which is just really one of those memorable scenes. Of course, you've got Liam Neeson, you've got Robert Duvall, who I heard from a film critic friend said you were one of the best directors he's ever worked with, and he's been working with directors for, you know, decades and decades. Can I just ask you a little bit about the Daniel Kaluuya scene in particular? Because I'm intrigued by where that goes, and just how you got him to kind of deliver that kind of menacing quality.
It was, I love the idea, because it was these two local Chicago rappers who are absolutely amazing. So they're actually those two guys are two amazing rappers. And what it was is like, I just love the idea that the perversity. You see, the Daniel's character has this kind of relationship with violence and perversion, because in some ways what's happened, he's so numb to violence that what happens, because of, you know, his upbringing and what he's seen, of course, and what he's experienced, that perversion of violence is something which sort of is almost like to pinch him, to wake him up, you pinch yourself in order to sort of feel something, because you don't feel anymore. And him toying with these two guys in that way, and of course what happens, I don't want to spoil it for anyone who doesn't see, is part of his sort of part of who he is, and part of that sort of you know, it's the perversion, because it's in some ways he's sort of numb to it. And that's what happens. That's violence. That's the growing up. I mean, that's a lot. We did a lot of research, you know, with that, and what people went through, and how things happen, and so forth, and whatnot. And I think that the main character of the movie is Chicago, because Chicago, for me, is this segregation and this sort of mistrust. I mean, you know, the churches, the sort of the politics, you know, the sort of the business. You know, it's just this Russian doll situation. You know, everyone's part of that game. Everyone's being used in one way, shape, form, or the other. And yeah, it's kind of a sort of it's a real study of the city. Actually, I mean, one could talk about sort of all these, the Mulligans. That's you know, Robert Duvall and Colin, Farrell, and their relationship with the city as alderman, and the sort of the younger up and coming alderman, and everything else. It's just one of those places which is so fascinating. I mean, I'm sure, I don't even know why aren't there more stories about Chicago, because there are, but contemporary Chicago is just so rich, so
Mm.
bloody corrupt. Sorry.
One of the ways you express that is just through image and sound, which I really like. In fact, one of our TIFF members, Namfanalo Malloy, has a question about that car scene with Jack and Siobhan, and says it's excellent because we see the tracking shot only of the car as we hear the dialogue, and she wants to know what the inspiration was behind doing the scene that way.
Chicago.
Mm.
The proximity to wealth and poverty. I mean, I'll tell you a story. So one day we were doing a recce, and we went to this woman's house. This lady, this in the south side, this black lady's house. This very sweet lady who has this old. She had been there for, I don't know, she'd been living in that house for maybe 60 years. Her husband's family's house, and basically she was behind on the mortgage. Basically, not even the mortgage, the sort of interest on the mortgage, and they were repossessing her house. And this house was so wonderfully tidy, and she was so proud of her house. But of course, it was dilapidated. I don't think anything had ever been done to it since she moved in, or when she was there 60 years ago. We were looking at the house, and I was asking her questions. And we were just basically doing a recce, and then within 20 minutes, we were on top of the Shears Tower in Chicago. In this guy's apartment. He had 2 adjoining apartments. I don't even think he had been in every room in that apartment. And it's less than 20 minutes drive. I don't even, less. It was a bit of a, can I swear?
Yeah, go for it.
It was a bit of a head fuck.
Yeah.
And you saw that a lot. And even in that journey, which you see in WIDOWS, it's that close. It's not even there's no it's that close. It's that close. And that sort of physical proximity, I thought, my goodness, this physical proximity, we have to put this in the movie. We have to go from here to here. We have to. So I knew that I wanted to put that in the movie somehow. I knew I wanted to sort of make that visual, that journey. I thought, time. So time from going to A to B from there, conversation, and all of a sudden you're out of the car and it's like, oh, where the hell are we?
Yeah. So within one shot.
And it wasn't difficult to find. I mean, that's it. I mean, it's heavy, and it's just heavy. I felt it was just very heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Very heavy. I mean, there it is. There's a narrative. You can see it. There's the narrative. Oh, there it is. Shoot it. Make it happen.
Yeah.
And the dialogue in the car was amazing because we had some help from a lady who was in politics with that dialogue.
Okay.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That was very sort of real.
There is a scene of police violence inflicted on a young black man in the film. I won't spoil it for people who haven't seen it.
That doesn't happen often.
Oh man.
I never forget. I remember when we made the movie, there were certain people saying, "Oh, WIDOWS, it's a great movie, but why was that scene in there?"
Really?
Come on now. Come on now.
If anything's come out of this moment is that a lot more people are aware of how common that is. There's so many clips of cell phone
I think I would say a lot more white people are more common.
Yes. Yes.
That's what you're saying, really, isn't it?
Yeah, that is what I'm saying.
For some reason I hadn't noticed before, but never
mind. So yeah, I mean, just talk to me about how you frame a scene like that, because obviously this is a kind of violence that for a lot of black people is a regular part of our lives, and it can be very traumatic. So I'm just wondering how you went about, framing that scene, putting it together, what you wanted it to evoke.
Well, interesting in the film. What was interesting for me was the fact that you knew something was wrong. You knew something was missing, but you didn't know what it was. And then you saw the bedroom, or a room that she wouldn't go into, was a room, and then she enters the room finally at a certain cathartic point in the movie. And then within that room, that's the bit when you find out that a child of theirs has died. You don't know how they've died.
Mm-hmm.
And then when she goes in there again, almost like what was it? the past comes in. When she opens that door, it's like letting the past into the present. It's like whooshes over. And that was what I wanted, this almost like speed, almost like I wanted speed, I wanted movement. I knew when that door whooshed open, I wanted movement. Just, okay, the car, it's got to be a car, it's got to be moving. And it's something innocent like this kid is in the car. And, again, what happens with the police is that when they see you, first of all, they think criminal, first of all. And therefore, their hands are on the trigger, or their hands are on the taser, or their hands are on something before you even open your mouth. So the fact that that happens so quickly and so kind of dramatically is what happens often. And for me also, the most important thing about this thing was that, of course, but also it was about a couple, a couple with a white father and a black mother, and their child has died. And in some ways, their father, the white father has to come to terms with the fact that his black child, his black son, has been killed, and there's nothing he could have done about it. I think a lot of parents who who have children who white parents or black children are confronted with something maybe they've never been confronted with before, and that was a very important part of the film, that Harry couldn't deal with the fact that he couldn't do anything about it. He couldn't do anything about it. As he says, I couldn't save him. I couldn't save us.
Even with all of this material that's in the movie, the very serious subjects you're dealing with, it's a heist movie as well. And there's certain things that kind of movie demands. You've got explosions, chases, those kinds of things, planning a heist. How did you feel about that part of the film? Because these are things that are from sort of popcorn genres, but what did you take out of that part of it?
Oh, I loved it.
You loved it.
Yeah,
nice.
It's sort of blowing things up. Oh my goodness. I was like, good. Let's do it again. It was great. It's like it's all again. It's one of those things where visually, I just love the idea that and also it's planting a puzzle right at the top of the picture. Starting the picture where what you've got 3-4 questions in your head thinking, okay, and you're busy in your head as the narrative is going on. So we planted seeds in your head and thinking, okay, what's that about? So immediately we got you, we brought you in, and then of course there's a situation of okay, the sort of I'm not interested in making noise to make noise, bang and shooting guns. Everything has to sort of have its place. So what's interesting for me is the fact that you could draw people in, keep them eating their popcorn at the same time thinking. Popcorn and thinking. That's what I wanted. That's what I was thinking. Popcorn,
you're my kind of filmmaker, Steve. That's us too. Popcorn and thinking.
That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted. I don't know if I was successful in that, but maybe the thinking, but maybe not the popcorn. The rest of the story. We'll talk about that. But that's what I wanted, really. I wanted that movie where you were thinking about your own position in the environment you live in, as well as sort of be given that kick or sort of given that sort of excitement of a narrative. That's what I wanted.
We're gonna, I hope, get some popcorn and start watching Widows in a few minutes. But I want to ask you one last question about Small Axe, which we just saw announced for the Cannes 2020 list. Wow. This is a new series that you've done, which stars, among others, John Boyega. What can you tell us, if anything, about Small Axe?
Nothing.
Really?
Well, no. It's based. It's sort of 5 films based in the based in the West Indian community in London, West London, from 1968 to 84, 85. And I'm very excited about it. And I'm very excited about it. Really, it's sort of it's just about my town where I was born, my part of town, and about the people that sort of I kind of knew, and people who I was obviously a bit young to know, but definitely knew, and the trials and tribulations of being a black person, but also the sort of fun and the devil may care attitude of West Indian people in London. So it's just fun and dealing with a lot of crap as well. But at the same time, it's about being alive and surviving and thriving.
I can't wait to see it. I don't know if you know, I was born in London myself, and I left when I was 4 years old. I was 1967, so at least just leading up to that is my era, certainly my parents' era as well. So I can't wait to see what you've done with that time on screen. Steve, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. Can't wait to watch Widows again.
Yeah, it seems people are catching up. Never mind.
They are catching up, yes. All right. If you're in Canada, we're moving over to Crave. We're going to press play on Widows at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. That's 4:30 p.m. on the West Coast. If you're not in Canada, find Widows wherever you can. We're going to be live tweeting as we watch using the hashtag TIFF at home. Steve McQueen, thank you.
Thank you for watching, guys. Take care, Cameron.
Thank you.